What's up, everyone? Adam Ronis here, along with James Grande, as we have a 14-game slate tonight in the NBA, and still a lot of injury news that we're waiting on. James, what's your general outlook here on this slate?
It's a disaster. Just with all the injury news that we've already had or still to come. Unfortunately, we've gotten a lot lucky with this, half an hour. The NBA is now requiring half an hour before your game's played to get lineups out, to get actives in. Unfortunately, all the players that are going to be ruled in or out are kind of after roster lock. So it's kind of tough over on FanDuel tonight, just considering we have no late swap. This is my pitch, once again, for late swap on FanDuel. Please listen to everybody that wants it. But it's a nice slate. There are a lot of massive totals. There are a lot of good spots. And there's a lot of things that have opened up due to injury, due to Jimmy Butler basically being rolled out, due to Kawhi, which we knew, but they didn't really, the sites didn't really react. Knowing that the Clippers had a back-to-back, there aren't really too high of priced guys in like Montrezl Harrell, Paul George. So we have a nice slate. It's 14 games. It is huge. The ownership is going to kind of be depressed everywhere. We're not going to see many guys too highly owned, but that's always contingent on news. We could see John Morant, who is a crucial part of this slate, ruled out, and Tyus Jones is likely probably the highest owned player of the slate. So it is 14 games. So we should probably start diving into it because we could honestly talk about this slate for the next 2 hours but unfortunately we only have 53 minutes until lock. So yeah.
For sure, and obviously I think that Tyus Jones is probably the big news we're waiting on now. That will open up a lot of value. Let's kick it off at the point guard position. Who are some of your favorites tonight?
So I think Damian Lillard is fine for tournaments. I do love Lillard more at home generally. 33 actual and 50% shooting at home this year compared to 25 actual, 41% shooting on the road. It just is always seemingly Dame time when he's at home. I like the spend there for tournaments. I think Russell Westbrook becomes a really, really, really interesting play with Clint Capella out. I mean, we've seen Capella 20. I mean, the last 6 games, he's grabbed 20 or more rebounds. And we've seen Westbrook teetering around 3, 4, 2 his last time out. So there is a lot more peripheral stats opening up with Capella off the floor for Westbrook, and he's priced under 9K on both sites, not just DraftKings anymore, even on FanDuel 8,800. And I kind of like the fact that we're seeing 8% ownership on him. I know ownership doesn't necessarily matter as much on a 14-game slate, and we shouldn't necessarily harp on it as much because it's going to be so spread out. But it is really nice to get a superstar at a really nice price tag at depressed ownership. I think Kemba Walker is too cheap. Another guy we saw miss a game, and suddenly it's like the world is coming to an end. He's now $6,700 on DraftKings. That is a misprice if I've seen one. I think Kemba is a really strong tournament play. Malcolm Brogdon, too cheap. I don't love that game. We just got word Rudy Gobert is playing tonight. Utah's defense without him gave up 117 points or more in 2 straight games. They will not give up that many points to Indiana tonight with Rudy Gobert back in the paint. So I like Brogdon a little more before the news, but the price tag is still nice. And then someone that we both are on, you said you saw before you saw the playbook picture was Ricky Rubio. That was going to be your value ball picture, and you had to scramble. I mean, 5,500, right? It's very hard to ignore. We saw him peak at $7,700, and we're getting for 5,500.
Yeah, I mean, going against the Wizards, too, who played last night. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. The total's around 240. Yep. He doesn't really even need to do much. I know, he missed some games with the back spasms, but it looks like he's good to go. It's really hard to go away from him tonight because even if he only plays 27, 28 minutes, say this game does blow out, Phoenix is favored by 7.5, he should be able to crush that value easily. So It's really hard. It's a 14-game slate. I don't think you ever want to lock yourself into 1, 2 players unless you really have a strong feeling. But on DraftKings at 5,500 Ruby, I think you have to lock him in. Even if the ownership's going to be high, doesn't matter. I'll figure out where to go low elsewhere.
I agree. The only thing I will say in terms of like people not playing Rubio is probably the Heat guys, because we're getting all of them are the same price. We got Nunn, Dragic, and Ricky Rubio all at 5,500. Kendrick Nunn 5,600. No, that's on FanDuel. All 5,500. I mean, they're both elite without Jimmy Butler this year, both averaging over a fantasy point per minute. Dragic has a 27% usage rate without Butler, Nunn a 24%. So they're no slouches. So I think like all three of those guys, I could see kind of the ownership just, being divvied up between them. And then, like you said, if John Morant, if we get news that he's ruled out before roster lock, all of it doesn't matter, because then Tyus Jones is the lock and load play of the slate. I mean, he's 3,200 on DraftKings. He's 3,600 on DK or FanDuel rather. You're not playing him. Like, that is your lock and load, because it's a really nice total in that game. 3,200. He needs just 16 fantasy points. So, like, how can you not lock that in at a starter? Someone we've seen in the past in Minnesota last year have 40-point upside at times. So, I love all those guys at the 5,500 tier. But honestly, and you could play them all if you want on DraftKings. I mean, you could play Nunn at the shooting guard position. You could play Dragic at the guard position, Tyus, and you could build with, guys like Anthony Davis, guys like Paul George, spend up on Giannis. But I think Tyus is obviously the clear-cut number one if Morant is ruled out.
Yeah, definitely. Certainly, I like Dragic on FanDuel at 5,000. Last time Butler was out, he had a big game. For the Heat. It was early in the season, but if he can get 30, 32 minutes, and we know Houston plays pretty high pace, and with Butler likely out, listed as doubtful, that's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. At shooting guard, is this a night to pay up for James Harden, or you don't think so?
I think it became more of a night to pay up for James Harden with the Jimmy Butler news. I think that obviously plays a part, because Butler can be such a good defender. I love the pace of this game. I mean, Miami has fallen off the ranks a little bit. They were playing at a really fast pace, but they were playing at a really fast pace without Butler. That was when they were pacing the league in tempo, and now we're getting that same scenario again, like where Jimmy Butler isn't there. We have Justice Winslow back, someone who pushes the ball. Dragic off the second unit pushes the ball. I mean, I think this is definitely a say we could pay up for Harden. I don't think there's never not a slate. We can kind of say the same thing we said about Westbrook about Harden, except Harden has been productive. Like, there is now more rebounding opportunity for Harden with Capella, and we know there's triple-double upside with Harden. So I have no issues going there. Am I doing it in cash games? No. I find myself doing a lot of fair and balanced builds in cash games tonight. There are a ton of really good mid-tier plays, but in tournaments, no problem playing James Harden at all.
How about Bradley Beal tonight in Phoenix? It is a back-to-back. He is a little pricey, though. Game has a high total. And in the same game, Devin Booker, I think he might go a little underlooked tonight.
I think Bradley Beal always goes overlooked, no matter what the slate is, no matter if it's 7 games, 8 games, 11 games. I just don't think people like to look at Bradley Beal as like a 10-year, 10K player. But he has been. He plays 40 minutes. He has a 30% usage rate, and he averages well into the ones in terms of fantasy points per minute. It's very hard to ignore games with a 240 total. I did tell you before we hopped on air, I'm very skeptical of this game just because Washington's schedule. They had to play a game in Denver, which is tough enough, playing a one and then break and then another game. Just playing one game in Denver is tough and taxing enough. Then you have to travel to Phoenix the next night, and you're expected to play at this insane tempo that you've been playing at. Now, I think a lot of points can be scored here. I just think it's from the Phoenix side, and I think Devin Booker could be a primary reason as to why. I mean, we're talking about Washington, who hasn't given up less than 117 actual points in 9 games. It's been 9 straight games of 117 actual points more on a defense. That is crazy. They're now 29th in defensive rating. They're bottom 10 against shooting guards. And we've seen Devin Booker score 70 actual points in a game. Do I think he's going to score 70 actual in a game? No, but I mean, the way Washington's defense is playing, It's not the craziest thing to think. So yeah, I think Devin Booker is an elite play. I'm venturing to say he's fine in cash games. If you consider the 240 total, the Suns have the highest implied total on the board. It's just, do you believe in a 240 and do you believe in Washington on the second night of a back-to-back keeping this close? I'm always weary of jump shooters on the back-to-back, which Beal is. But ultimately, it's if you believe that this game could stay close. Hopefully it does for all people playing Devin Booker tonight because he can have a really big evening.
Yeah, I was going to say, when did the Wizards give up 117? Then I just remembered it was last night because it feels like they give up 120 every single night.
Every night.
Last night in Denver, just 117, which is still a lot, but Denver with the comfortable win. How about other shooting guards? You list DeMar DeRozan in the playbook. I think that was interesting. I was looking at him earlier today just because I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. And I know there's not huge upside there with him, but he could 5-6x his price, and he'll probably be low owned. I don't think he's a core play, but I think if you do play multiple lineups, you can consider him.
Yeah, and I think 7,400 against this poor Minnesota defense is fine. I think Covington is going to have his hands full. I don't think we see DeRozan. I think we see DeRozan matched with someone like Wiggins, who, is lanky, but he's never been one to play great defense. There's a reason why they're bottom six, there being Minnesota, in against shooting guards and small forward, whichever position DeRozan is going to play, because we know they start two essentially point guards, and DeRozan plays a three. Like you said, he's not a core play. I think he's fine for cash games. I think we've kind of gotten to that groove with DeRozan where he's good for about 40 fantasy points. He's going to get you about 40. He's going to play 35 minutes. And if this game goes into overtime, there's going to be a reason, and DeRozan is going to, in large part, be that reason. I mean, we know he's a scorer, and that's always what he's been able to do. I think this environment fits perfectly for him, not to mention the pace of this game. I mean, Minnesota's playing at an insane pace, and now we get DeRozan up-tempo. We love DeRozan in the open floor, too, if he gets out and runs. So I love him, and I love Wiggins on the other side. I think Wiggins, now that Jeff Teague is coming off the bench, I think it's a new version of Wiggins. I think you could play either of these guys in cash games. Wiggins probably has the higher ceiling, just based on what he's been able to do peripherally this year. But I think both of them have really nice floor for cash as well.
By the way, Chris Middleton will make his return tonight, but he will come off the bench for the Bucks. And George Hill ruled out as well. So a couple of things there. Now, also in the lower tier shooting guard, you have Alec Burks and Poole, but we have found out that Draymond Green is listed as probable for tonight. That is a late game. If Draymond Green plays, do you like him, and how does that change where you go with Golden State tonight?
Draymond, I think, would be okay because we haven't necessarily seen a minutes limit when he's missed time. He's come back, and the first game he came back, he got thrown out. So we can kind of cross that one off the list. The next couple games, he plays 30-plus minutes, and one of those games he gets his triple-double. I don't necessarily love Draymond. I also don't hate him considering how bad the Bulls are defensively, especially against front courts. Definitely changes my opinion on Poole. But then again, they don't have a lot of wing scorers. I mean, we have Steph Curry out. We have D'Angelo Russell out. We have Damian Lee out. So, Poole's going to probably play 24 minutes, 25 minutes. Burks probably sees a little decrease because I still think they're going to play Eric Pascal a bunch of minutes. I would still play Eric Pascal in pretty much all formats because they still need people to score, essentially. So I guess at the start of that, I didn't like it, and I've now come full circle to realize Draymond doesn't necessarily affect any of the scoring options. So if you're a scoring option in Golden State, you're fine. I think mostly it affects Kai Bowman, if anything. I think Kai Bowman at 6,400 is an absolute no-go now that Draymond's playing because Draymond's going to start at point guard. So I'm okay with everyone. I don't have a strong enough opinion to play them now on a 14-game slate. I think they're kind of all wishy-washy to me, but they still need scoring, and where is it going to come from? And it's a bad Bulls defense. I don't know, Adam. I don't know. I'm teetering back and forth here on the live stream. Do you have a stronger opinion on it? I think it could go either way.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to play any of them, to be honest, on this slate. I think the over-under is 212.5. I mean, it is bad defensive teams. I might think about Draymond, but probably not. I don't think there's a need to go there tonight. I agree with you on Bowman. I took him out of my season-long lineup. With everyone playing tonight, obviously you have to bench a few guys, and when I saw Draymond's problem, I'm taking Bowman out for sure. Small forward position, interesting here tonight. We got Giannis, obviously very expensive, but his floor is very high and his ceiling is high. But there's a potential blowout, 14.5 points here that favor Atlanta. LeBron James, we'll get to his teammate in a little bit. Brandon Ingram with the real revenge game, and Paul George with no Kawhi Leonard tonight, resting on the back-to-back. So where do you go here with small forward?
So obviously you could play Giannis, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you don't. We've seen 80 2 of the last 3 games, and the way that the Bucks rotation works is he comes out early in the third, comes back late in the third, and plays early in the fourth. So we could still see him play 30-plus minutes tonight, or around 30, and he can get us there. I'm just worrisome that this gets ugly really fast. It's in Milwaukee. Trae Young was banged up. They have a lot of banged up pieces. I know a lot of them are playing, but they're just not very good anyways. I mean, you're going to see Giannis be guarded by guys like Jabari Parker, DeAndre Hunter. I mean, it's going to be a massacre. So if you want to play him, sure. I think it's too expensive in cash. I don't think we can really afford to play him in cash. I don't think there's enough value right now. Obviously, Tyus Jones could change things. LeBron is fine. I think something I always bring up, if you want to play stars in games that you're going to get him at low ownership, perfectly fine. We could see Davis shit the bed, and LeBron is the guy who obviously will pick up the slack. So do I fault you for playing LeBron James? No, I think he's a very good tournament play. Brandon Ingram, you brought up, that's the real revenge narrative, realistically. I mean, he's the guy that got traded for no reason, just because maybe the Lakers just didn't think he was good enough or didn't think he was this good. But he's an elite play in every facet of the word elite. I mean, a 30% usage rate, even with Jrue Holiday on the floor, 1.4 fantasy points per minute. As elite as they come, and no one's going to play him. I do think Paul George is the guy that sucks up all the ownership, though, and for good reason, right? We didn't even mention Lou Williams over at shooting guard. There's no Kawhi. So, you could play Lou, and he's an elite tournament play. You could play Paul George in all formats. He hasn't been restricted since the first game of the year, where he still played 25 minutes. So we shouldn't think that there's going to be any restriction at all. As my dog barks, he loves the Paul George play.
Yeah,
He's running at the door right now because we're talking about Paul George. Again, you said earlier, don't limit yourself on 14 game slates to one guy, especially if you're a multi lineup player. If there was one guy though that I'm really honing in on, in all my lineups, it is Paul George. I just think it's too cheap. I almost think it's too cheap at 9,600 on FanDuel. We do get the extra $1,000 or extra $10,000 over there to spend. So essentially same price tag across the industry. I just think it's too cheap. This top of the position is elite as it gets. And this has been a very bad position throughout the season. I think this is a super tricky top of the position to navigate through because of how elite it is.
It definitely feels that way tonight. Power forward. So Anthony Davis, people are saying this is a revenge game. I don't know. He asked out. So I understand he's going back. He's going to get booed a ton. He's going to be popular tonight. So how high are you on Davis? I mean, the price is pretty fair. He hasn't really had that huge game lately, but I could see LeBron James deferring to him tonight and say, hey, this is your night, man. Go light it up. Will he be able to handle that pressure, the booing? How high are you on Anthony Davis tonight? Because he's going to have high ownership.
Yeah, I mean, I think nothing really changes. It's status quo. We play him in tournaments, and then we move on. I think you never play him in cash because the chance that he goes to the locker room and doesn't return, or he just is ruled out before lock. I mean, there's always that possibility, especially with his shoulder injury. There were reports that he went to LeBron about his return to Cleveland and how he handled it, and there were reports that Davis circled this game on the calendar. So, I mean, look, the Pelicans are bad anyway defensively. So even if you're just talking about it from like a statistic standpoint, you just take out the revenge factor. I mean, it's a pace-up spot. He plays big minutes. They don't have Derek Favors, who is a very good anchor for that defense. I mean, at times we're gonna get him matched up with Jahlil Okafor, Kendrick Williams, who's like 6'6", and you know, I mean, it's just a really good spot in general. I think he's an elite tournament play, but that's kind of no different than it would be on any other slate. It's just a really good spot, revenge game or not.
How about some of the other power forwards? We know that's usually a tough spot where on FanDuel you're required to start too. So who are some of the other power forwards you're taking a look at tonight?
Pascal Siakam, who is different positions on every site. I think he's very safe against the Knicks. I mean, we get a floor of 40, we get a ceiling of like 55. I love the price tag across the industry. I think Siakam's really safe. I'm willing to go to Blake in tournaments at 7K. I really am. This Charlotte front court has been abysmal. I mean, they've stooped so low to play Bismack Biyombo 23 minutes in back-to-back games because they're just getting torched by power forwards and centers. So I'm willing to go to Blake, and they are starting Bismack tonight with Cody Zeller out. But Blake plays power forward. He's going to eat whoever is there. Marvin Williams, PJ Washington, Mikal Bridges, doesn't matter. Still a 30% usage. Still over a fantasy point per minute. So I got to believe the breakout's coming for Blake. I think LaMarcus Aldridge is in a similar spot to DeMar DeRozan. It's a really good spot. It's a really good total. It's a really good pace for the Spurs. And Aldridge is kind of really in a good groove. 40 fantasy points over his last 6 games and on average. So I think Aldridge is in play for all formats. Bam Adebayo is a power forward on FanDuel, and I'm hitting the smash button. I'm smashing all my keyboards right now, playing Bam, all formats. I mean, 1.4 fantasy points per minute without Jimmy Butler is juicy enough. Now we get no Clint Capella, and we get Tyson Chandler. Like, Tyson Chandler has no shot. I mean, yes, great. I'm so happy that he was once a defensive player of the year. That was like 20 years ago. We have Tyson Chandler standing no chance against Bam. I love him all formats. I mentioned Eric Pascal. I don't hate it still because we've seen him score 30 points with Draymond on the floor. They still need scoring. I think 6,300 is fine. He's playing power forward too. The Bulls rank dead last against power forwards. So nice late night hammer exposure. You get the dead last team against power forwards. So I think Pascal's still firmly in play even with Draymond active.
I agree with you on Bam Adebayo. That's probably the one player I am definitely looking to get in my lineups tonight. It's just he's in a really good spot. He's been playing great all year too. You know, he was someone that was pretty popular in draft season. You know, I was able to get him in the 4th round, wanted him, and you know, he's lived up to expectations, and it's a really good spot here tonight. So that's one guy I really want. Also at the center position, could you see yourself paying up? Is this a night to pay for Karl Anthony Towns? Could it be Andre Drummond? Who do you like at the high spot at center? And you know, will Joel Embiid rebound? I mean, no points the other night. I couldn't believe that. I had to double check. I saw it on Twitter, and I said, wait, let me check the box score. This cannot be right. I thought it was wrong. But so who do you like at the top at center tonight?
Yeah, Marc Gasol he owns Joel Embiid and has his number. There's no chance I ever play Joel Embiid against Marc Gasol team ever. The 0 points, I can't. I'm with you. I did put him in my bust article this preseason, so I'm happy that I'm not happy. Obviously, I like Joel Embiid, but that made me look smart for one night. I think Towns is fine. I think he's a fine tournament play. I don't have like the urge to play him. I'm not like forcing him into my lineups, but he's gone for 60 in 3 of his last 4 games. We're going to get matchups with Jakob Poeltl, who's not the fleetest of foot, Trey Lyles, LaMarcus Aldridge. I think he could take advantage of all 3 of those matchups. I mean, the center spot has been one of the best to go against for Charlotte. So Drummond, as much as Blake has obviously hindered his fantasy upside, this is one of those 2020 spots. Yes, Bismack is slightly better. I don't think Bismack is as good as he once was, and then during that playoff run where he was blocking everyone's shot, and they basically got him a $100 million contract because of it. I think Drummond's fine. I liked him better when Zeller was probable, and then Zeller suddenly ruled out. So I don't think we need to go there. I think Embiid is fine. Rashawn Holmes, very foul happy. Dwayne Dedmon is the backup. So, like, you can definitely hit the smash button on Embiid for tournaments. He's too cheap, too. Anytime you get under a sub 10K Joel Embiid, I think that's too cheap. But again, Bam is a center only on DK. That's where I'm going. And I'm going to play a lot of Montrezl Harrell tonight. As soon as Kawhi Leonard was ruled out, I mean, Montrezl Harrell gets a 5% usage bump. That's bigger than Paul George and Lou Williams with Kawhi Leonard off the floor. Pretty hard to ignore. He's also has the second highest fantasy point per minute mark on that team with Kawhi Leonard out 1.3. I love Montrezl Harrell. I know it's a back-to-back, but Memphis plays at a really fast tempo. We're going to get extra possessions here. And then I like Bismack down at the bottom tier. I liked him before. I actually had him in the playbook before Cody Zeller was ruled out, just because he's been playing minutes. And I think they're just tired of, just oozing points to big men. And he's been productive. Now he's going to be banging in the paint with Drummond. There's going to be a lot of rebounding upside. No Cody Zeller means more run for Bismack. I don't hate it. As a pump play, like Tony Bradley was there earlier in the day, Gobert starting, so he's gone. I mean, Daniel Tice was ruled out yesterday and then back from the dead like the Undertaker, and now suddenly he's playing, so Enes Kanter's out and Robert Williams out. So, like, we don't have a ton of value on this slate as it is. John Morant, again, they just came out with an update. Game time decision. Like, we're not getting anything concrete. So Bismack is an avenue to the value to get you guys like Anthony Davis, to get you LeBron, to get you Giannis. So I do like him at 3,900 on FanDuel quite a bit. And $4,000 on DK isn't breaking the bank, obviously, either.
Jimmy Butler officially ruled out due to illness, as we expected. I think we kind of went through this slate expecting him to be out. Now we know it's official. But Morant, that news is unfortunate that we don't have it, especially if you play on FanDuel. You're going to have to make a guess here on what to do with Ja Morant and Tyus Jones. Final thoughts on this slate, as Justice Winslow will play off the bench as we expected he make his return. Final thoughts here on the slate for tonight.
I mean, just be conscious of the news up until roster lock, because if we don't have the news, you're only playing Tyus Jones in tournaments. You can't afford to have Tyus Jones in your cash game lineups if we don't have that news by 7 o'clock, because it's a 14-game slate. There's too many variations that you can pivot to. So just have both lineups built. And if we do get the news, play Jones in your cash games. If we don't, pivot to the Heat guys. Pivot to Rubio. There are plenty of options, but especially if you play on FanDuel where we're not going to know, be cognizant of what's going on in the news with the newswire.
All right, guys, make sure you head over to fantasyalarm.com. Check out the playbook, the value vault, and the optimal lineups. Hope you guys have a very happy Thanksgiving. Good luck tonight.